Doing this again. All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, Loons fans, to Loon Talk episode, I think, 8 now here on Score North. My name is Jonathan Harrison. Usually alongside me is Dan Terhar, but he is not with us for this first part of the show. We are joined by special guest, the manager of Minnesota United, Adrian Heath. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Well, you've just told me that I'm the substitute, John. You know, it's a long time since I've been a sub, I've got to be honest.
Well, no, you're not the substitute. You're the special guest. That's
okay. All right then. All right.
Cal didn't
I'll accept that one. Go on.
Cal didn't like the title special guest when he was on a couple weeks ago. So we've been trying to play with a couple different names, but I like calling him special guest because
okay, that's fine.
It's more grandiose, I guess.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to start off. How has your mid-season break been? I mean, this is kind of weird to have that it's actually scheduled this time, unlike last season. How have you guys and the team been handling this 3-week break here?
Well, it's strange because somebody said, have you enjoyed your time off? One thing I can assure you, we've had no time off.
Yeah.
I gave the fellas Thursday, Friday off after the first week. Mm-hmm. So they got like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It gave a few of the guys a chance to go home and catch up because obviously they've been sort of back in Minnesota for a while. So that's always nice. But it's been a really good break for many different reasons, really, John, because, you know, we've got players who are all at a different stage. You know, we've got Franco Fragapane who's come in and now we've been able to, you know, he's had time to sort of get himself settled, get himself a house, get himself a car. And Adrian Heath has arrived into the Twin Cities and it's given him time to get settled. And then also it's allowed some of the guys who needed a rest to have a real sort of 3 or 4 days of going, okay, let's recharge the batteries. Mm-hmm. Let's get over them niggling little injuries that you've been carrying. And then for some of the other guys, it's been a case of, okay, without the challenge of getting players really, really fit with the game at the weekend that they might be involved in, it's been really, really good that way. So for different players, for different reasons, it's been really, really good. In a perfect world, I would have preferred to have carried on playing, you know, on the back of 2 wins and a draw and try and keep that momentum. But we knew it was going to come. But as I say, from a player's point of view, I think for different reasons, for different players, it's been very, very good.
Yeah, especially after the rough first 4 games. And I kind of want to work through, I've kind of like 4 different tiers of questions here for this interview here. And I kind of want to start with the first 4 games. I know you kind of want to put that in the back of your memory. But what's the one thing that didn't go right for you guys in those first 4 games of the season?
Well, it's very simple. Both boxes weren't good enough. Mm-hmm. You know, didn't create enough at one end, which is a problem, and then gave away too many opportunities at the other. That sounds really simple, I know.
Yeah.
But if I was to dissect the games going through them, you look at the start that Seattle have had. Mm-hmm. I remember listening to the broadcast and people saying, what a good team Minnesota are after 45 minutes. We completely dominated the game. And then we conceded a goal that will be a contender for goal of the season. And then the last 20 minutes, we sort of fell apart. And there was a few, you know, Romain was down when we conceded the 4th. And we conceded poor goals. And we have conceded poor goals since the season started. I think we've addressed that. I think, you know, the last 3 games conceded 1 goal. And I think we're now getting back to what we were last year. I look at the Colorado game. 2-0 up at half-time, maybe the best we've played since I've been the coach of Minnesota on the road. Everything that we asked, moved the ball really, really well, defended well. And then we could see the goal, and then they started to put balls in the box, and we didn't defend well enough. And I don't use that as we didn't defend well enough. That's the back 4. We didn't defend well enough as a group, as an 11-man team. And that was the one thing that we spoke about going into them home games, you know, against Vancouver and against Dallas, that we have to get back to what we are. We're hardworking, blue-collar team that has more ability than people think. But we are at our best when we defend from the front. Everybody joins in when we attack, but everybody does their fair share when it comes down to the hard part, which is the uncomfortable part, and the dirty part is defending your goal, throwing your body on the line when it matters, stopping crosses, winning first balls, winning second balls, and I felt as though we've addressed that. Now, it would have been nice to have carried on, on the back of a couple of wins and a draw, but we knew this break was coming, and the most important thing is for us to remember why we lost the first four games, and remember what we did differently to actually go and get 7 points from nine, and go 3 unbeaten. And we need to continue this, because the games are going to start to come thick and fast, and you're not going to have too much time to dwell on or do an awful lot of work on the training field in between these games.
So how do you go about, go about getting the players ready for how thick and fast those games are going to come? Because as we know, the first 7 weeks of the season, we're all kind of spread out. You had a bye week in there, which you're going to have this season, which is a weird thing. But then after this break, it's pretty much hell for leather for the rest of the season. You guys are going to have a lot of midweek games. How do you guys go about preparing your team? I know you guys have spent a lot of time in the last 2 offseason getting a lot of depth. How much is that going to help, I guess, coming up for the next couple months?
Well, when you talk about it, John, with the games that we're going to have and the length of the season, the amount of games that come with the travel, with the different conditions that you go to, like this weekend, I guarantee you, probably kickoff, it's going to be 105 in Dallas this weekend. And no matter what you do, it's difficult to prepare for. So you're going to have to make changes. Then we've got a home game, which is going to prove crucial, as it always does in this league. Then we go to Portland, so it doesn't get any easier. But no, you hope that the depth that you've got, you hope that, and we've had quite a bit of conditioning in these last 2 or 3 weeks. We've realized what's coming. And this week we will temper it off a little bit and hopefully keep the guys fresh. But we've tried to get, I wouldn't say a mini preseason in, but we've certainly worked harder than we would have done normally in this little break.
Perfect week last week to get conditioning in with how hot and humid it was.
Well, as you can see from my face, maybe sun cream might have been a good choice. But when you're out there for 2 or 3 hours a day, it doesn't become too easy. But no, we've managed to, as I say, work really hard, and the players' attitude to work has been great. I just want us now to sort of pick up where we left off, because the one thing about this league, it's very unforgiving when you're going on the road and all the different conditions that you have to play in. And, we've spoke about that to the players, and I want us to not forget where we were and what we just had come through, and pick up where we left off against Real Salt Lake, because different, contrary to popular belief and what I heard 1 or 2 people think, I would take a draw on the road every game this season. And when I hear people talking, and I don't mean external people, I mean some internal people talking about what a poor performance it was, I don't think people have a clue what it's like to go and play in Salt Lake against a team who the week before had beaten Kansas City 3-1, and we go in there, get a draw, and we were disappointed that we maybe didn't win it. Altitude and all the stuff that goes with it. Maybe if people actually realised what it was like playing at them places, they might have realised it was a good point on the road, as it always is. And as I always say to our players, never, ever turn away a point on the road or at home. Winning games is not easy. But what people forget sometimes, John, the other team want to win as well. You know that.
Right.
It's not just a one-way street this, that we're the only ones who want to win. And so it's, no, we need to keep this run going. It's, I've been pleased with the attitude of the group in the last few weeks.
So I kind of want to take a look at some of the news surrounding the team over the last couple weeks since we've been off of games. Hassani Dotson signed a new 3-year deal last week. He keeps him at the club for a couple more years while he continues to develop and grow into the game. A couple questions off that. As a late draft pick, there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare, I'd say, around him, but he's grown into probably the best player in what is considered by many one of the best draft classes by a team in league history, I'd assume. How long did it take until you guys thought, you and the coaching staff looked at each other and thought, oh, we might actually have something here?
Well, we liked him pre-draft. We got tipped off by a friend of one of the members of staff, and we'd done a bit of homework and we'd seen him. Oregon State, I think he was.
Mm-hmm.
And we liked what we saw, and we were always worried that somebody, when you pick him, I don't know, what was he, 35 or something in the end?
I think so, around there.
Yeah, and we were only an him, is he going to be about? Is he going to be there? But we were pretty certain that we thought we got a kid that could grow. The one thing about him, wherever he played, we always felt as though he had a really good feel for the game. And what I mean by that is he can play at fullback and plays like a fullback. You wouldn't go and look at him and go, he's obviously clearly out of position. He gets a really good feel and understanding for the game. Athletically, he's better than people think. He's sneakily good on the dribble, and he's a really good finisher. So we thought we got a good player. Now, it's been difficult for him because he's had to go past Aussie, arguably the best number 10 in the league for 12 years. Jan Gregus, an international, was away playing in the Euros. But, for us, it was imperative that we tied him down. We feel as though he's going to put himself in the team and going to be very, very difficult to dislodge. We think he's got huge growth. I know that the people at the under 23 level who had him in the Olympics think really, really highly of him also. So, we're delighted that he's committed, and if he keeps working as hard as he is, and I know he will because that's his nature, we feel as though we've got a future US international on our hands. And, I know he spoke about it. I know he wants to go to Europe at some stage and experience that. But the only way he's going to do that is by his performances on the field for us. And, we made him aware of that. Hopefully that comes. Hopefully he gets to a situation and a position where we find it very, very difficult to keep him in. And that would be the aim, not only for us, but for him also.
I want to get back to that in just a moment. But first, he's one of the most versatile players on the roster. You mentioned when he plays at fullback, he plays like a fullback, and pretty much he's played all over the field for you guys. Everybody always says about guys like that their versatility can sometimes hurt them because they never specialize in one area. But with him, it always seems, as you mentioned, he's just good at whatever you ask him to do.
The thing is, sorry, John, I went through a similar thing myself. Mm-hmm. I played in all the forward positions, whether it be wide right, wide left, up through the middle on my own, underneath the striker, false nine, played in central midfield. And I know that, and it's something that me and him have spoke about.
Yeah.
And eventually we feel as though he will develop into a two-way midfield player. He could play 6, but he can play an 8. He can play box to box. Because the one thing I don't want to do is stifle him, because if he plays a full season as an attacking midfield player, as an 8, if you like, in a 4-3-3, or even in a 2, and he could play under the striker, I honestly believe he could get between 8 and 12 goals because he's such a good finisher from the edge of the box. And goals are hard to come by. That's why all the people who score him and make him go for the most money.
Right.
So it would be wrong if we think we've got somebody who can score a goal to stifle him that much. Mm-hmm. So it's something that we've spoke about. And I agree, eventually, I think he will be, if we play a 4-2-3-1, he will be one of the two, but with a bit more license and a bit more freedom to break forward. It's something that we have spoke about trying to nail a position down so we can actually perfect it. And we probably will. In the next sort of 6 months, I think it will be very apparent where he's going to be playing.
Yeah. So how do you balance that as a coach from wanting him to be just on the field anywhere you can get him because he's that good of a player, and basically figuring out his position and getting him really good at that position? With a guy that versatile, how do you balance that?
Well, ultimately, and this is a coach speaking here, not the player.
Yeah.
We always have to look at the big picture. Mm-hmm. The most important thing for us will always be the team, and the club will always be here. Minnesota United will be here long after Adrian Heath and Hassani Dotson. So we have to pick what's right to try and win a game of football. We also have to couple with the fact is that sometimes you have other players as well. Mm-hmm. At this moment in time, if you look at it, we've got Ozzy, who's coming back fit. We've got Will Trapp, who's been an US international, who's won MLS Cup, has been captain at 2 clubs he's played for. We've got Jan Gregus, who's away now with the Slovakian national team. We've got Jacori Hayes. We've got a lot of competition in there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes for the rest of the group, we have to make the decision. And Hassani being as versatile he is and giving us that energy and that drive that he plays with, sometimes, He's the one who has to maybe forsake where he plays for the benefit of everybody else.
Yeah.
But we are aware, and we've spoke to the kid. Eventually, he will be nailing his spot down.
Switching to a different player, Michael Boxall is one of the longest tenured players at the club. He's pretty much a favorite of Dan and I on our broadcasts. Since he's been at the club, he's dealt with a lot on the playing field, mainly 8 center back pairings in the 5 years he's been here. The thing is, I don't hear him get talked about as much as he probably deserves as probably one of the better defenders in the league. How important has he been to what you guys and your staff have been building here at Minnesota?
Well, I remember when we brought Boxy in, and he was very quietly brought in and probably under the radar by an awful lot of people. But I know, he certainly knows how highly we feel about the kid.
Yeah.
And when I ask, and I speak to other coaches after the game, other people in the league, realize that. Sometimes these are the type of people that you build football clubs around, because not only is he a great professional, he is an unbelievable guy in the locker room. He's a fantastic teammate. The other things that people always forget, he's nearly always available, which in this league is huge. When we play Saturday, Wednesday, or whatever it may be, I'm never thinking that Boxy isn't going to be available.
Right.
Because he has that durability. He has that, all black mentality. He's from New Zealand. He's big, he's strong, he's uncompromising. He never takes the easy way out. He never, he always sees a positive. He never sees a negative. He never convinces himself that he's tired. And as I said, for a coach, he's a coach's dream.
Yeah.
Every football club needs people like Michael Boxall, and we're just glad we've got him at our club. And
he's super consistent. I can't remember more than a handful of games that you looked at him like, oh, that's a bad game. It's always level or a pretty dang good game for him. And he's had some pretty decent center back pairings in his time and some pretty not so decent center back pairings in his time. And I think that's been a huge thing for this club over the last 5 years, is having Michael Boxall at the back for you guys in front of whatever goalkeeper has been there for you. Lastly, on the team so far, MLSsoccer.com posted a 5 teams to watch in the transfer market. Minnesota wasn't listed. Should we be watching the Loons this summer based off your quote from a couple weeks ago where you said we aren't expecting any more players?
Well, we've obviously got Franco Fragapane, and since then we've got Adrian Heath now, and we thought that might be it. There may be one more thing that we might do, maybe 2 if something else was to come off. But as every club, you never stop looking to see if you can improve. And what people sometimes forget is that sometimes other people like your players.
Yeah.
And then you have to understand that, is that a good deal for us in the long term or the short term? Now, sometimes them deals, I always go back to Christian because he was such a favorite, Christian Ramirez. They aren't deals that you do because you go, oh, I don't like this guy. They are deals that you do because they crop up unexpectedly, because it's for the benefit of the club or the team or the squad of players moving forward. And sometimes they come out of the blue. So I would love to be able to say, we've got the perfect squad and we're going to go with this group till the end of the season. I guarantee you, I could field a phone call about one of my players tomorrow, and it might be such a deal that you go, we might have to think very carefully about this deal. This is something that we, might be too good to be true in this moment in time. So as much as I would say that there might be 1 or 2 little changes, I don't think anything really major, but you never know, John. That's the one thing I know about football, that you never know what's around the corner or what phone call you're going to get tomorrow.
That's actually a perfect transition into my next question. But first, you are listening to Loon Talk here on Score North and anywhere you find your podcasts, also on Score North's YouTube channel. I'm Jonathan Harrison, joined this week by special guest Adrian Heath. Adrian, you kind of mentioned it there, the deals. I want to talk about trades in this league. It's something kind of unique to MLS. Dan and I have talked several times this season about how you guys have 2 starting keepers, and that can be a pretty big asset later in the season, come the trade deadline, if you want to call it that. This question really isn't specifically about Dane and Tyler, but how do you go about, as a staff and a front office, judging what's a good return in a trade? Is it more what you need at the moment or more about the long-term view?
A bit of both. Also, the player's contracts dictate sometimes, as a player coming out of contract within 6 months, and now somebody's offered you an opportunity to bring a few $100,000 in time or GAM or general allocation money, and then you have to weigh everything up. the one thing I do know is certainly with the goalkeepers, we are really blessed with the quartet we've got with Zendejas and Fred Emmings as well. We're really pleased with the keepers. Obviously, I'm not stupid enough to know that keeping 2 number ones, eventually something will have to give, and we don't know where that will be, whether it be this year and 2 years, a year, 18 months, we don't know. But obviously, Dane's young, he's ambitious, he wants to do well, he wants to play first-team football. But as we said before, before Tyler got injured, we were really, really pleased with him. Tyler's only been on the losing side for us.
Right.
When you look back to when he first came, and he had a major operation, to have a hip operation for a goalkeeper with the amount of diving and, moving about that they have to do and the challenges they go into. But I think he spoke volumes of his professionalism. He come back so sharp in pre-season, and he was devastated he didn't start the season. And I said to him, listen, you just keep going and training the way you are, because the game changes. And when we made the change, I made a point of making sure that people didn't think, oh, he's left Dane out, but it must have been Dane's fault. It wasn't. I spoke about it earlier. This was a collective. But sometimes you make a decision that you think something needs to change to give somebody, the defender, something different to think about, a different voice to hear. And, obviously, with the 3 games since then, makes you look like you know what you're doing, when you win a couple and you draw one. But I can assure you that, that wasn't really down to Dane. That was more to do with a collective stance and a collective group of players suddenly saying, okay, enough's enough. We've got to start defending better.
Also, along the trade question, why don't we see more player-for-player swaps in the league? That happens in other American sports. Is it just a general unwillingness to give up players in trades because you have Gam and Tam at your disposal?
Maybe, but I think it's something that I've spoke about before. I think you also don't see many loans between teams because, there are certain times where I've just mentioned we've got 5 midfield players. And people might be struggling for a midfield player, but you don't get much of that in this league, which I think would be a good thing, because at certain stages through the year, you might be in a position that you need help in 1 or 2 positions, and there are clubs who can go, well, we've got 3 players in that position, you could do it, but you don't see much of it. Maybe it's something down the road which might develop, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think Austin FC loaning Sebastian Berhalter is the first I can remember since.
I can't remember many.
Yeah.
I can't remember many at all. And as you say, in certainly where I'm from in England and Europe, that happens an awful lot, because when you're carrying a roster of 28, at the end of the day, only 11's playing and only 19, 20 are stripping. So it's, there are plenty of players who are not getting the opportunity that other clubs could probably use.
Yeah. Switching directions here, we know the league has been targeting Argentina for players over the last several years, but it seems, specifically with you and Los Angeles Galaxy, there's been a focus on getting talent from France lately. You got Unu, Metanire, Debasi. They've got a couple guys this last offseason. What is it about the French market that you guys see that probably it doesn't seem like other teams in the league have seen so far?
I from what I'm hearing, I think more and more clubs are looking at the French league. They've had, economically, it's been really tough there with the TV deal. Canal Plus have pulled away, and a lot of clubs are financially hurting.
Yeah.
Plus the fact for actual producing young talent, and obviously they get a lot of African players because of their background with the colonies, etc. They've got an incredible Serie B League 1.
Yeah.
Not many leagues, I'm all over the place. League 1 at this moment in time is a real breeding ground for young players in France. A lot of the big clubs send their best young talent to play in League 2. And I think there are so many really good players there. And you do get value for money, especially at this moment in time when the clubs financially are hurting so much. So I would think it's something that will continue to grow. In terms of South America, especially Argentina, anybody who's been down there will tell you that talk about hotbeds of soccer and people who want to play and who love playing football. There might not be many better countries than that in terms of producing players.
If you're going on scouting trips, why not choose South America? It seems like a perfect place to go on a scouting trip.
Sometimes with the logistics that you go through, Jonathan, I'm not sure you'd say that when you've looked and there's a train supposed to be coming and you go, we cancelled that 4 weeks ago, but nobody knows that all the planes not on time and got cancelled 2 days ago as well. So sometimes it's not quite as easy as it looks.
Question for you. You're the fourth most tenured manager in the league. You're among the likes of Peter Vermees, Jim Curtin, Brian Schmetzer, and Bob Bradley as the top five. There's been degrees of success among the five of you. Is that why you guys are the five most tenured, or is it because you guys are the most tenured that there's success with your clubs?
A bit of both of that. I think it's a good point. I think I read a stat that teams that change every 18 months or 2 years, it's a fact that they don't get any better.
Yeah.
And then you've got a coach coming in who wants to bring his own staff in, change all these players. And then 2 years later he goes, and then you're in exactly the same position. I'm sure that all those five of us will tell you that we know it's not easy. Mm-hmm. The job is certainly not easy. But I look at the 4 years. I said when I first got here, let's look where we are at the end of three. We've got better each year. We've got better, I think, each transfer window. I'm pleased with the progress that we've made. Certainly didn't envisage the start that we've had this season. I've got to be honest. But we'll see where we are at the end of the season. Yeah. I think we're making huge strides on and off the field. And some of that maybe gets unnoticed where people just look at the end result as have we won or lost on Saturday or a Wednesday. There's an awful lot more that goes into building a football club. People don't, this is our fifth year. We probably came in, I would think, at least 1 year too early. But that's the way it was. Mm-hmm. And we've had to build and we've had to grow. I speak to Peter Vermees regularly. He's a good friend of mine. I've got so much respect for him. And he talks about the first 4 or 5 years at Kansas. It's not easy to build a roster, especially when you look at the type of clubs we're talking about. Is that another fact that, you look at Philly, haven't gone crazy. They've gone down a different road with their academy. Peter Vermees over in Sporting Kansas City, they haven't spent huge amounts throwing money at the team. Yeah. And if it sticks, it's great. If it's not, it's a disaster. I think there has to be a long, drawn-out, thought-out plan. And we're all aware that eventually we will rely on results. Every one of them coaches that you've just mentioned. But, people always talk about Alex Ferguson. Well, he was there 20-odd years. He's going to be successful. Wenger, and it comes hand in hand. But trust me, when you look at, I don't know if anybody's out there has watched the Sir Alex Ferguson
fantastic
movie. So it's an incredible movie. But how close was he to losing his job?
Yeah.
But it was the people upstairs who see other things rather than just have they won on Saturday or have they lost on Wednesday. It's far more complex than that. And I think if the big picture is taken into context, more clubs would have more success.
Do you think
ultimately...
No, you were going to say.
No, I said, and ultimately we all live and die by results. We're aware of that. But you also have to look at what are we trying to build here.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way that we can kind of go back and give coaches more time? Or is it we're stuck in this time frame where ownerships aren't going to give coaches a whole lot of time if they're not producing results right away? Or is there kind of a middle ground that can be met?
It depends what the criteria of your club is. Now, I'll throw Dallas in as an example. They haven't made the playoffs the last few years, but they're piling fortunes into their academy.
Right. Yeah.
But now they're starting to produce players that they're selling. So what is the criteria there? Now, if you're a season ticket holder and you don't care about the academy, you're probably not happy when you don't make the playoffs and you're bottom of the league.
Yeah.
But people within that club, they have a different plan, they have a different structure, they have a different way of going about what they're trying to build and what they think they are. So everybody's plan is a little bit different. There's probably a little happy medium somewhere in all of it. But, I think in terms of giving people more time, I said this before, and I know one or two people sort of started looking at it and going, well, I'm not sure that's the right one. The social media part now for any coach in any sport is a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's the enemy of any coach, because people who you don't know whether these guys are qualified to talk about anything, and yet they keep putting this stuff out, and it's difficult for ownership groups and people who are in the firing line who are receiving it because they don't do things. that is the difficult thing for them. You know, I know from, I've got a couple of friends of mine who own clubs in England, and the amount of pressure they come under social media wise to make a change if the manager loses 3 games. You know, they win 3 games, he should be having a lifetime contract. They lose 3 games, and we need him fired this Saturday, you know. Yeah. And sports is not like that, and they can't react like that. And the unfortunate part is, Jonathan, that some people do.
Yeah.
You know, they can't handle that sort of pressure that comes and the stick that comes with, you know, outside influences putting you under pressure. But no, it's part and parcel of the job. We all do it. We all know what's coming. We all know what's around the corner. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
Once again, you are listening to Loon Talk. I'm Jonathan Harrison, usually alongside Dan Terrar, but we subbed him out today for our special guest, the manager of Minnesota United, Adrian Heath. You can follow, you can rate, review, and subscribe Loon Talk anywhere you find your podcasts, as well as Score North's YouTube channel. Just wrapping up here with a couple more questions with Adrian Heath. Want to look at the Euros and the Premier League season, because I don't think we've talked since the Premier League season ended. We'll get to that in a moment. The Euros so far, what have your thoughts been after the first round of group play? Because there's been some pretty good action.
Yeah, love the Euros, because the one thing about the Euros, there's not many easy games. You know, you look at the group today with Portugal, and you know they're having to go to Hungary in front of 62,000 people, biggest crowd for like over a year, with all that emotion that's going on. So that was difficult. Big result for them. Obviously, Germany, I still think Germany will maybe qualify, although it's going to be difficult in that group. I like Italy. I did before the tournament. Mm-hmm. I've watched them quietly just get better and better. I think they 28, 29 unbeaten now. England showed the first 25 minutes that they can move the ball really well. We have good front players. I still worry about us on the counter-attack. But we play at home, and if they can get through and keep playing at home, and the crowd keeps getting a little bit bigger, which they're hoping for the next round of games, maybe get the 50%, so they get 45,000 maybe into Wembley Stadium. If they get that momentum going like they did in '96, and England will be difficult. But no, I love it. I think that I think Italy are the pick so far. It's going to be interesting. You know, I looked at the Spain game the other day. I think if Spain had a real top-class number 9, they would take some stopping, because when you can keep the ball as much as they do, what was it, 90% possession in the game? You know, whatever the opposition do, if you've got the ball, it's difficult. So, no, it'll be interesting. I think the next games are going to be even better, Jonathan, because we're at that stage now where if you've lost the first game, you've got to win the second one. Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you've got no chance. And the teams that have won it know that if we win the next game, we can rest players before we get to the last 16. So it's going to be really interesting. I love the Euros, because I think the competition is so intense. There's not an easy game, as I said.
Yeah. I'm going to take France away from this one, because that's probably the easier answer considering how they toyed with Germany today. Who and I think you gave your answer here, who after the first round of play looks like they can win the tournament?
As I said, I do like Italy.
Yeah.
Spain, if they can catch fire in the forward positions, because they're just so good at keeping the ball. I don't think you could look any further than that. I would also go maybe, and this might be a bit early, Germany, because they do tend to grow into tournaments. Okay. Now, the next game for them is huge. Well, I don't know where they play the games, but if they continue to play in Germany, and they play, and they can get a win and start picking up some momentum, they're a really good tournament team. Even when they've got poor teams, they always seem to make it to the quarterfinals and then knock England out on penalties normally. As I too well know, but no, I think once again it'll be the usual suspects. I really do.
Are you concerned about Phil Foden channeling his inner Paul Gascoigne with that haircut?
Well, the one thing is, as long as he's not in the dentist chair and does all the other stuff, off the field stuff that Gazza used to do, and I don't think Phil will. No, he's obviously he's going to be a special talent. Everybody's really excited about him in England, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, it's an exciting squad England have over there. Shifting to the Premier League, looking at your former club, Everton. Carlo Ancelotti ditches Everton for Real Madrid return. And now there's reports that former Wolves boss Nuno Espirito Santos is close to agreeing to a deal to become the next Everton manager. Your thoughts on that whole situation? It looked like you had Ancelotti there for a while, and then Real Madrid come in with the Bucks and kind of take him away.
The one thing I do know is, and obviously plying my trade like I've always done in Europe, when Real Madrid come calling, eventually it's over. It doesn't matter who it is. You know, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the David Beckhams. I remember it all. They never leaving in it. They always end up at Real Madrid. So when Carlo got the opportunity, I think it caught everybody by surprise that people I still know at the club didn't know anything about it on the Friday. Sunday, he's gone, you know. So it was out the blue. Nuno's done a really good job at Wolves, you know, and he probably needed to move. But he's done a great job at Wolves. I don't know where that'll leave my good friend Duncan Ferguson, whether he'll be part of the new regime. I hope he is, because I think he brings so much more to the club than just coaching and his personality. It's a big decision for us. You know, they've got the stadium around the corner. They're going to spend the best part of $1 billion on a stadium. So this decision has to be right, because what they don't want to be doing is moving into a new stadium in 2 years' time with a team that's not good enough and not competing. I thought that if we'd have managed to keep Carlo and give him another couple of transfer windows, as he could have kept adding, he knows how to win. The one thing that we knew with Carlo is if he had the right materials, he can win. He's proved that. So it's a big disappointment, because he did give the club some gravitas. The fact that he was the coach, a world renowned coach, that gave the club something. So no, the next appointment's really, really important to know. If it's Nuno, hopefully he does the job that we all want him to do.
And then lastly, we mentioned it a while ago now, you travel down to Dallas this weekend. Dallas are a club that has struggled this season, winning just once. You've already seen them, and you beat them 1-0 at Allianz Field. What are you expecting from them this weekend, besides obviously 104 degrees down in Frisco, Texas?
Yeah, that never changes. We always seem to get them when it's like the hottest day of the year, so I don't expect any difference this time, you know. But no, they normally, traditionally, you know, that one win came at home, you know, and they've been close on a couple of occasions. We've watched their games. They get after you a little bit at home. They're normally young. They're normally full of energy. They normally get after you and put you under pressure and make you suffer in the heat as well. But the one thing that we've won games against them, and if we can stay in it early on, when they bring everything at you and then start to play our football, then we have more than enough to win the game. It'll be tight. It'll be difficult, but it's one that we're capable of winning for sure.
For sure. It'll be good to see you guys back in action after a couple weeks off. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us this week on Loon Talk. It has been a pleasure talking to you again, sir.
Anytime, John. You know that.
Thank you, sir. And we will now be joined by Dan Terhar coming up after this.
Is that us, Dan? Is that us, John?
Yep. We are done. Thank you, sir.
Mate. No problem.
Thank you.
I'll speak to you later, eh?
All right. Have a good one.